if you're watching this recording, enjoy.
Sure.
Okay, while we're nerding out
Massachusetts.
and we're seeing where everyone's from,
Yeah,
say hello in the chat. Where we are based, I am based in Toronto, and
I
then
am.
Jose is in
I
Ottawa,
am.
Ontario,
I'm
Canada.
in Ottawa. Yeah, we're Canadians.
We're gonna jump in, and I'm just going to say that if you guys have any questions, please pop them in the chat, um, in our Discord channel.
We're talking about directing like your own independent film. So this is aside from what a studio environment is. This is how you create your own. How we did our own in two different ways. Where I was working on mine as an independent, I did everything myself, except for two backgrounds that are a friend and some music that I'm not a musician. So that was for me, and for Sonia was the opposite, which she had a team to
Yeah.
work with. So, and we will elaborate on this as we go along.
Okay. All right, then that's it. So essentially, we've we can talk about who we let's look into. Yeah, sure. Open tunes. We're happy to take suggestions. We will look into
Open
everything.
tunes here.
We're
All you gotta
learning
know is,
everything
yeah, we're
possible. Yeah.
learning. But the best thing about it is, like, even when I was in animation a long time ago, I started on paper and pencil, and an X sheet, and then what it is like any tool that we get. All it is just a different tool. Learning it is not a big deal, and that's what we're here as a community. If we need to learn it together, we will. We can discuss that as we go along. Anyway, so
Yeah.
yeah, please go on. Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry.
no, it's good. We already talked about like why we're here. You guys can look us up, our more about our credentials if you want on our LinkedIn's. We have like our resumes there, our credits. Essentially,
Yeah, we're a
Jose
link
and
tree.
yeah, Jose and I essentially, we have been coworkers, and Jose was actually my mentor when I just started out, in 2013. So we have crossed paths. So and now we, as we both love to mentor, we are offering all these, talks. And since I've
Mentoring.
been traveling for my short film, and I had more exposure to markets and stuff. And then when I came back, I felt like it's really hard to learn, from these things unless you go to them. So my goal is to share as much as possible about that side of things as well beyond what we talk about. But yeah, let's just move forward to our projects. I mean, Jose, tell us about your film, like your inspiration and how long it took you, and what software you used. Like, how did you work on that?
Yeah, this bad boy took 2 minutes, a minute 52 seconds, I believe it is. And I don't know if you guys have watched it. We have the links in there, but it took 3 years to make. The reason that is because I was working at the same time, so it was weekends, evenings if I was lucky, um, and my inspiration came from actually a movie Airplane from 1980. I think it was 1980, which was to me was huge because it made me laugh so hard I almost peed myself multiple times. So I have a love for Mad Magazine. So and Tex Avery, Bob Clampett, all the great old school cartoonists and animators that influenced me. So I wanted to what I wanted to do is make an actually just a short film, but I also love horror radio plays from back in the 40s, 30s, and 40s. So I took one of those and I actually I cut it down. It was like 40 minutes long and 30 to 40 minutes long, and I cut it down to about 12. And what you see, my short is actually just a prologue. It's the beginning of it all. My pipeline was basically just I couldn't use Harmony because again it was too expensive. So I used Clip Studio Paint EX to be exact. And then I use what else did I use? I used Audacity and I used Adobe Suite basically to do my editing. So After Effects and then Premiere Pro to composite it and put everything together. And that was basically how it came about. How about you,
Amazing.
Sonia?
How about me? Okay, well,
How
in my
was your
situation,
film?
yeah, how was it? So, to complement Jose's, essentially pipeline, I'm here to talk about the part where you do have other people involved. You do have, whether it's your coworkers, friends, or people in the community that are you working together, and it is a different pacing of a work dynamic. And as a director, you have to provide information. You have to collaborate with people ongoingly. You have to be present. So, and you have to find your way to bring the most, like value and support to your team in the process as a director, on top of everything else that you have to actually, like, if you have, work. in terms of bringing the vision and all of that. So for our pipeline, it was Toon Boom Harmony with respect to Photoshop being used for the BG painting and layout, and then Storyboard Pro again, is Toon Boom was for story, and the editing was for it was done in Premiere, and then with exception of the post, we did use After Effects a little bit, but most of it was done in Harmony. So it's a very hard Toon Boom pipeline, which is great if you can get all of that. But there's always alternatives, like with Jose. So that's that. So it's really about, when you work in the team, it's really understanding the main questions of the story, like the heart of the story, and then continuously bringing that in each department, each step of the way, making sure everybody's on the same page. So essentially, we are here to introduce to you, like what we're all these things we just talked about, the process of making a 2D short film. The reason it's 2D is because it's specific to a hands-on process. So like in 3D, it would be a different process. You would have a team to do everything in pre-production, and then you would have a department where you'd have previs, you'd have layout, like a shot flow. I think it's called shot finaling. Like there's all these extra departments that take care of taking the boards and then really setting it up. But in 2D, it's whatever you draw in the boards, it translates directly on the screen. So a 2D pipeline is a little more visually specific in the process, and the more precise you are in each stage, the more efficient and more precise your vision will be. So this is our plan. So we named each step of the way something different. So in our industry standards, like we have development, pre-production, production, and then we called them something that's more inspiring. So that's development. Your idea is the spark. The pre-production is the DNA of the design, because the way it looks. That's Jose's great. It was a great way to label that, I think. And then the blueprint is the the animatic, and the production is the
Yeah,
engine room. I'm just blasting through because we're a little like
yeah, we just
behind.
want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's day two. And day two is going to be wrapping it up with post-production and then distribution, which is just as important, understanding what you're working on, where it's going to go. And that's kind of also a thing you should talk about in the beginning
Yeah.
as well. But yeah,
And we're going to be elaborating on all these later on other workshops and whatnot. So it's not like, this is just the basics to give you the idea of what it is.
absolutely. And so again, if the questions, we also offering, because we do want to know if this is valuable to you. We do want to know what kind of
Yeah.
people you'd want to learn from in the community. So in terms of what kind of people we can bring, colleagues, coworkers, that could be valuable to share. So if you could give us feedback about this workshop and what else you'd like to see or hear from or about, we
Learn.
would, yeah, to learn, exactly, to grow, to expand, and we'd really appreciate it. So we're also offering you like a one-on-one with us if you have a project that you're really, whatever step of the way you are, that we have value to bring to you guys. Yeah, distribution is a big one. It's quite important. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
that.
And Sonia is pretty good at that. Sonia's gone through a lot of this stuff, but it's very important to know what to do. And that's why we're here. We want to support our community so we can create things and put it out there in the world.
Yeah,
Because we have so much talent everywhere, and
absolutely.
it's great. I love that I'm seeing so many people are, loving this kind of new movement that we're going into. Anyways, next,
Yeah, it's
Sonia, please.
yeah, it's new, but at the same time, it's always been the same. Animation is collaboration.
True.
It will always be about collaboration, right? I mean,
One hundo.
it's just the way, that's the beauty of the process. And no matter what happens, it's always going to be a process that creating content in terms of actual animated content, it's the same process. It always goes through. So kick us off, Jose. What is, like, when I just got into directing, they were like, here, direct this film. And I was like, what does a director do? So do you want to tell us, like,
Yeah.
what does a director do in 2D
Directing
especially?
was two different things. The directing for a studio is a very different thing when you're directing for your own independent film. So, for directing, in my eyes, is about having a vision to that. And I'm not saying that the studios don't do this. I'm just saying it's different in different ways. But when you when you're directing, you have a vision, and you need to be able to communicate that your ideas. If you're in a team, communicate your ideas creatively and effectively through your team. So I had to use a friend of mine, May Roseby. Well, I don't know if she's here or not, but hello. And she helped me out with two backgrounds because I could not get it right. So I needed her to paint them for me. And I'm not a painter. I've done a bit of everything, but I was like really stuck. And I managed to convey what I wanted out of it. And she was able to give me exactly what I needed. But we worked together like very close to go like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And that way we communicate and we create something close as possible. Um, when it and that's basically it. I don't know, like it was different for you, Sonia, because you had
Yeah.
a team. So how did you
Yeah.
handle that one?
So, as a director, when you do have a team and essentially you have departments and there's a process, and each thing translates into the next department, is other people have to take it and keep working and layering and building on top of it. It's quite important for the director to maintain, for me especially, I mean, each director works in their own way, but the responsibility of a director is to maintain the vision, to understand the finished picture, what that looks like, what that sounds like. The music part is actually part of the process just as much. It's not something we slap on at the end. It's something we collaborate and work with closely from day one, as directors, at least visualizing the mood of this picture, and then I'm trying to think of how would that even sound like, and sound effects, and the audio visual experience, because at the end of the day it all tells story, right? So visually the designs tell story, the animation tells the story, the color, everything. And the same with the music. I mean, you would never remember some of the films that you watched if it wasn't for the music. For me, it's always going to be
Absolutely.
the theme song of Terminator. It's Terminator, like,
Dun, 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 dun.
oh, so it's just these things are the way we remember and the way we internalize our experiences, and it's quite important. So, in terms of the pacing, the cutting, like when you're visualizing what the story is in terms of all these aspects, and you're trying to really get the theme, working with the composer is quite important. And of course, throughout the process, you need to communicate this vision through notes, through sketches, whatever your skills as a director. Like in my case, it's
Mhm.
story, it's boards. So it's hands on wherever you can help in whichever way possible as director, and whatever your strength is, that's where you put in your most amount of hands on, and the rest you do leaning more on your team, of course, and supporting your leads, right? I mean, relying on them and being captain of the ship. It's not about telling people what to do. You could, just
Mhm.
tell people what to do because you feel like it, but it's about what is the best idea, help support the story, and is it helping us or working against us? So even if it's not my idea, but if it's a good decision, at the end of the day, the director has the veto decision making. So, but if you want to keep it a collaborative process and you want people to feel involved and really like what they're working on, and like make it their own, you also want to hear out what they think, and if it helps the story, because you're taking that lead as a
Yeah,
director. Yeah, then you
and
bring
that's
bring
exactly
it in.
it.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's exactly about good leadership, and that's something that you can learn going through. That's also we can discuss at a later time too
Yeah.
about leadership, and it's actually supporting your team
Yeah.
and getting feedback.
And yeah, absolutely. And the most important thing is, as I think I've read this or heard this somewhere, what this was, a sentence or whatever. It said, if you don't have a deadline, you don't have a project. What it means
Yeah,
is everything has
project
to have,
management.
yeah, exactly. Like you need to have deadlines. If you're not going to have them, then it's just not going to happen. You might get just stuck in one phase and keep doing iterations of that phase. And if there are no deadlines or nobody holding you accountable to those deadlines, because sometimes holding ourselves accountable is also
Hmm.
difficult, then your project will just not progress forward, and then it's not going to be done. So you're not going to have a finished,
Yeah,
short film content. Yeah. So
and as
these
artists,
things.
we unfortunately get hung up on the idea of like if failure is a bad thing, but you know what? Failure is actually that's how we learn how to get better.
Yeah. So
Like it's like when you're drawing and you do crappy drawings, and it's like you keep doing, you get better. That's how you learn.
So in
What were
your
you gonna
case, yeah,
answer?
I was gonna say in your case, like you had to be your own producer, your own manager, your own,
Yes.
you had to figure out your own schedule. So could you
Yeah.
tell us quickly how you handled like your time management and keeping
Yeah.
yourself on track? Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, and a lot of it is you become actually your own project management. So you need to learn how that works. because you need to know when what your deadlines are, and you need to know what you need to get done. And there's some questions there that we'll answer later on that I saw that were interesting, because you need to be realistic about what you're creating. You can be too ambitious, and that's fine. You just need to pull it back, because you need to make sure that you can realistically make a deadline. So you're always going to start moving it. You're going to always changing it, or you're always changing it, because let's say you got to give yourself, like, check yourself twice a week where you're at, and if it takes you long to go, okay, based on this information, this is how long it's going to take me to do this, or I need to modify this process in order for me to achieve it in that time frame if you
Yeah,
want to get it done. So
awesome.
yeah, there's that one thing. You need to wear a lot of hats to be honest. Make a schedule. That is a huge thing. There's a lot of free scheduling software out there, um, that you can use, and give yourself realistic goals. Don't get too crazy on it. Like, you put it down what you want to do, but also, like, pull it back and say what is realistic. Always ask yourself that question. Um, when it comes down to backup and storage, make sure you back your stuff up. Now we live in an age where everything is cloud storage, or get a hard drive, portable hard drive, but always have the like, organization's key. Um, Again, we'll discuss that in workshops, but it's how to put yourself, because there's a lot of confusion. Where do I put things? How do I organize things? How do I make these things happen? It is incredibly important, because if anything falls off of that, then you're kind of in trouble. So it's going to take you a lot longer to recover from it. So it's
Right.
important to get everything ready at the beginning. How about you, Sonia? Like, how did you
Absolutely.
manage your project management for your?
So yeah, in my case, I mean, of course, I had a producer, a project manager, we had a team. Everybody had a role, and of course, as a director, though, you integral part of uh, overviewing the schedule, and with each department assessing how far along we are in the film in terms of like the goals and what has to be left. And then you work very closely with your producer. Your producer is your next best friend essentially as a director, and that's important to understand, respect, and find. Essentially, like find a good balance where you have good communication together, you have good understanding together, and you can always talk to each other as things shift, and be comfortable with bringing up problems as they come, and not let things sit, because when problems sit and they don't get solved, it creates snowball of other problems, and by the time that it got on to the next department, it could be even harder to fix. So the director's job is very involved in every department, not in the sense of just checking in and making notes. You have to talk to the team. You have to. I see some questions. If you guys can pop them in the Discord, it'll be really helpful. Otherwise, I might forget them. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I
we
will
don't want to
try to
lose track of them.
copy. Yeah, we'll try to copy them into the Discord though.
Yeah, and we'll
And
we'll get to them then.
yeah, and if we have some time today, I will definitely pull some questions up.
Yes.
So what I would like to say is that like we all, this is the real world. Like we all have to have jobs and pay for things, and we all know that short films are not money making per se unless you have a distribution plan, what you're going to do with the content, and that's really actually an evolving process now. Short films are becoming a very good thing now, so like proof of concept. So essentially, what I would like to say to you, so anybody working on their stuff part time, just like I was working on the short film part time, and having a job, a family, I got two kids. You need to carve out your part time hours that you can
Mm.
consistently give as a director on a daily basis every day, because that's how much you need to dedicate as a director when it comes to progress, because there's always something being updated, iterated, confirmed, or somebody will always need information from you as director, and it's extremely important that you make yourself available, because you want to be involved and supporting, and that way
Yeah.
your team becomes yours. You take onus of the project, it's your film, but it's also your team. And it's extremely important to understand that if you want everybody to have contribution to the film, you could just, at the end of the day, short films are also about people giving extra time, because they're not highly paid projects, and I'm sure most of people out there are doing it for free, which is not like the most ideal, but that's the truth. So
Yeah.
respecting people, but also on the other side, people have to be committed. So as a director, you have to find time that you can commit consistently. And I was involved in my film like as a full-time job, like as in like I felt like it felt like a full-time job, but I had 3 hours per day that I carved out. Um, 2 to 3 hours consistently that I could commit to. So please commit yourself to the time you can manage consistently. Don't burn yourself out. It's a huge thing. So we're just going to pivot into the next thing, which is your idea, right?
Yeah.
So let's just pivot to that. So, like, Jose, do you want to talk a little bit about your idea? You said it's a radio
Yeah.
play, um, inspiration, and is there like
Yeah.
anything else you want to say about it?
Yeah, like the beginning of it all, like I actually call it the spark because that's a spark that gets you started with your idea, with your vision of where you're trying to do. The biggest questions are, you know, why are you doing it? What is it? And who is it for? So once you start coming up with all these concepts, um, you just got to put them together, and that's why it's the most important part, I think, because if you don't have a solid ground to start on, you can't really continue. It's going to be all over the place. You need, which this leads to blueprint later, but it's like the idea. You need to solidify what it is. Who are you making it for? What is it? And like so on and so forth. There's a lot of questions you got to ask when you're actually doing this. So for me it was like the radio play was my idea. I love listening to his radio plays, and I thought of a lot of really cool. I'm like, oh, this would be really fun if I can add jokes to it, just like in the movie Airplane. And in the movie Airplane, actually they refer to a movie. It's called Zero Hour, from I think it was 1946, and it was the movie Airplane actually took that movie and made it shot for shot, like
Mhm.
exactly, but with the difference of adding jokes. And I'm like, that's a great idea. I'm gonna do that because I like that sounds like fun. So I came up and I cut it all down to, I cut actually edited the radio play to even have things that were not really in the sequence of the play. It was just to make my own jokes. So I really completely like just played with it until I found something that was really fun. Um, so that's basically my vision for it. That was boom. But we talk about the what, the why, and the who. Those are the biggest questions, just to bring them back, because that's a constant when you're actually coming up with your idea. Your concept art, in my case, I actually got to, as I was listening to the radio play, I started drawing, and just making like putting down my ideas visually of what it would look like, and that becomes almost of like um what did I call it? Oh my God, my
Like an
brain. Uh,
inspiration, like a concept
yeah,
art.
your concept. It's kind of yeah,
Concept
it is
art.
concept art,
Yeah.
but it's like it becomes almost like what it was gonna look like and whatnot.
Yeah.
What this means to you actually is a big deal, because what it means to you is like if you're passionate about it, you will see it through, especially when you have something very solid. Like if you start bringing something up and you're like, this could be really fun. Who cares what anybody else thinks? Everything that you do is like for you, like as an artist, you want to make things that you love. And there's going to be other people that are going to enjoy it. When I made this, I'm like, I think only old people like me are going to like this. And more people ended up messaging me and telling me that they liked it. And I had no idea. I was like, oh, I guess I had a bigger audience than I thought, which is great. So just to keep in mind, there's always somebody that will like the same sense of humor as you. Um,
Yeah.
Back to you though, like how
Yeah.
did you come up with your spark? What was your spark?
So I think here's the thing. So when you have your own idea and you get really passionate about it and the vision is very clear, that is really great because it's already, you've done that work. You already know that you care about this. I think the challenge in my case, because um, in my case, I was working with a writer, and so it's not my script per se, it's not my story, but for me to get really passionate and caring about understanding the heart of the story, I have to make it relevant to me as well. So in terms of the actual script, we had to I had to have a lot of conversations with with the writer, and I asked the writer the same questions you would ask yourself when you write your own story. So the who, the why, who is this for, the background story about the character. It's important for me, the director, and for I think for any director to understand if you're making a picture, something like a film, that's it's different when it's a series, but in terms of something that's a standalone piece, you need to understand these questions, especially in order to understand as a director how would things evolve and how would the character behave, progress, feel in situations based on their backstory, based on these questions you've asked and established. So it's important to work with the writer, whoever written the piece, in the same way you would with yourself, and asking the same questions. And so in my case, the way I made it my own is that visually I understood what was important when I spoke to the writer, and then I brought in visual things, uh, rewrites in the script that I felt would help the story. So, for example, a clear one, if you guys watch the film, there's a window that everything happens in front of. So, originally it was scripted to be in front of a wall. And so for me, it was a better choice to have the window because the light has a big transition. It's part of the film with the music. So visually tying things together to be more effective and caring more about the sound and really, because the whole point of the story is that she's frustrated, but she's the tone, the tinnitus, it doesn't destroy anything. She is just reacting to it, and she destroys everything. And that is the point that I really had to understand by the conversations with the writer, that it's not it doing something to her, it's her journey of frustration growing into anger and then destruction. And then you have the resolution and the recovery. So that's what that's about. So essentially, the same questions as before, that you would, and the concept art, of course, helps with that. And in terms of who's going to watch this, it's important. Audience is important to know that
Mhm.
where this is from, who's going to, sorry, watch this. If it's for kids, family, if it's for adults, it dictates the things you will and will not do, like show or say. And what I did is I provided an emotional chart for my team. So it just because I have a team versus like Jose, but it's just you already have this in your,
Solo.
yeah, exactly. Many of you making your own, but if you have other people involved, what's important for me is for everybody else to understand the emotional state of the character throughout the picture. So like on screen timing wise and which part of the script what happens to her and like where does she actually like the climax and the drop and all of that. So that was another piece of information. So just moving forward and
Mhm.
blasting through, could you tell us like about
Blasting.
your, yeah, tell us about
Yeah,
your how you get started once you have your idea, like in your case you had your radio
yeah.
play.
So
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So I got the radio play. So my script was kind of taken care of because I created my script through editing a radio play that already existed. So it doesn't mean that you need to have a script for any short that you need to do. Like you don't need to type out like with a fancy software or anything. Just write down your idea. This is all we need. Like I know a lot of companies are trying to sell you things too, and it is what it is. But really, as a creative, you have an idea, just put it down. So the one the next step on all this, once you have your spark, your idea put together, now you go into the meat and potatoes, which is like your blueprint, which is essentially you're building your story, and that's including your storyboard, and you kind of animatic, which is you edit your storyboard with your audio, like everything timed out. And this is very important because if you don't if you're not clear on what you're doing here, like it's gonna fall apart when you start doing animation, and then you're gonna spend up way more time that you need to in animation. And like you got to think of what effects do I need to put in here? What do I need to composite certain things? That's when you go through a script breakdown. That's a
Hmm.
very important part. If you're getting a script, let's say, you
Hmm.
need to break down your script. What assets do you need? What designs do you need? All these different things. So for me, again, the voice, the casting, the music was already there mostly. I actually hired a friend of a family who's a musician to um to make me music for a hallway scene because I'm like that was a Scooby Doo soundtrack. So I'm like I can't use that, so I'm gonna get this, which is similar to it, so it worked. Um, Character references came down to like I love Mad Magazine and all these like old cartoons. I'm very old school. Like my whole thing was Tradigital, which is like hand drawn animation, but I did it with Clip Studio Paint, and I needed to figure out my pipeline first. So I did a couple of tests, and that was a little bit later on, but yeah. And my concept art, that's how I came about. Like if you look at this here, this is what I did while I was actually listening to the radio play, and I'm like, these are like the last two are actually from the Act Two, or the this next episode that I kind of put together, but the first one's here. And just ideas. I came up with these locations, and I'm like, okay, this is the mood. Um,
Awesome.
so what else do we have? What was the next one?
Yeah, that's it.
Beep,
I
beep, beep,
think
beep, beep.
that's unless you
Yeah,
got more.
reference shots. Actually, I just refer to a lot of old movies because I love the old black and white movies too. So like Night of the Hunter, which I strongly recommend watching old school movies because they broke a lot of ground. They tried a lot of new things, and whether they were worked or not, it's just very visually beautiful. And I purposely made it black and white because there is color in this short, but uh, the short signifies like things that are undead because it's about ghosts
Yeah.
essentially. So investigating, which we don't get until the next episode, but the first one does hint at it a little bit, and you can see a little bit, very small hints of color in it,
Mhm.
very muted because it progressively gets as we move along the
Yeah.
story. Okay,
Right.
I think we go back to you. What was your
Yeah.
blueprint for all this?
Sure, yeah. So as a director, like in my case, because I have departments, I still need to provide visual references for every single thing that has to be designed, every single thing that shows up on screen or is heard, music references, sound effect references, in terms of shots, what cinematography, what kind of, how is the cutting going to go for the editor? So every single department that somebody has to do a job, you have to visualize the questions the information they would need, and then you have to answer those needs with information, whether it's visual or whether you drew something or whether you found another film. Um, Going through a style, establishing style is a huge stage that takes time because it's one thing when you take a style that exists and you're trying to really emanate that style. It's another thing where you're creating a unique style to this film, which means you have to really figure out the shape language. You have to figure out the how the lines will taper and why and what case. Color, for example, in my short film, the color fills were coming out of the line. That's a direct reference from the UPA style. Or, for example, the way the lines were drawn and the UPA and 101 Dalmatians were my major references for the way the film looks and feels. As much as we wanted to do traditional animation, we couldn't because it wasn't attainable for the pipeline. In Jose's case, you could do it because you know what you're
Um,
capable of. In my case, when you're scaling the production to many people, it's a pipeline that has to fit everybody's ability and everybody's knowledge and experience and the schedule. So as much as we tried, it didn't work. So we did have a very fancy rig that allowed us more flexibility than like the standard. However, yes, as a director, I had to look at the animation styles and talk it over and give references. This is all the legwork you do as a director before you even get into storyboards. It's just fleshing out the film as much as you can, in whatever way possible, and with design and the shape language. That was an ongoing iteration process between the art director and myself, and drawing overs, more references until we really honed down on what we really wanted the character to look like. And um, also use the reference from Triplets of Belleville, which is why her
mhm,
nose is very not perfect, because I really love that
mhm.
imperfect look of how humans look. It's not so polished, and
The best part about humans.
yeah. So that's that. So like I just gonna blast through a little faster now because for the sake of time. So I provided some beatboard sketches for my team before we launched the story team. It's just thinking about the moments in the script and just trying to again get that information before people start making all this work. And I feel like for a director, that really helped everybody move things along the more I understood what we need. And again, information of the location, just like floor plan, how this tone of a character would move, um, what would it do, and again, that's like conversations with again the writer. Would that make sense for this? Like, what is the intent of the character, etc. So yeah, so we're just gonna move on into like the design aspect of things. So, like, you've got your idea, you've got your
Ooh,
animatic, right? Like you're going
yeah,
into your design now. um,
yeah,
so yeah, do you want to tell us again, like you talked about the black and white, the
yeah.
essentially the shape language, like you talked about your essentially your
Yeah,
was it
yeah, the
you?
process
Yeah,
of it.
the process of it.
the,
Yeah.
the process of it, like once you have a story that you can start where, this is the cool thing about making your own short films, is like you're making stuff up as you go along, which is friggin' amazing, because there's
Mhm.
times that you like put things down that you could have an idea, you wrote it down and you're like, you know what, this doesn't work, I'm not going to shoehorn it in because then it will feel forced.
Mhm.
What can I do here to hook it up? And then you change it.
Yeah.
So even when you get to the design stage, for example, here I needed to come up with my three characters, and I'm like, okay, I went very all over the place. I love cartoons. I wanted to make cartoony, but I went kind of detailed in some places where I'm like, is this doable? This is where it becomes very important for you to start thinking, what can I actually do this? Can I
Mhm.
produce this in the amount of time that I have? Because you're creating your schedule as you're doing this, right? You're going, how long would this take? Is this a 3 minute short, a 5 minute short? How ambitious are you doing? How many cuts are you gonna? There's so many questions to ask. So this will morph, it becomes its own kind of entity because you're living with it, right? So in this case, I designed these and I'm like, okay, I kind of like these ideas. And then I got to the end and I'm like, what is doable? Then I actually simplified them to what you see here as the final design that I used. And I literally just worked out my layouts on a shot. And I'm like, okay, this is what works. I'm gonna use this.
Yeah.
Now that's a very different than being in a studio environment. It does not work that way at all. You have different departments, and because I was doing everything, I needed to make sure that if I was giving it to somebody else, I communicate this clearly. But in my case, I was just moving forward. And then I actually uh, tweak things as I went along. And I had that luxury,
Mhm.
um, as you know, doing it. Color keys, like I said, yeah, everything black and white. So the villain here, actually, I had a lot of fun designing him, but he won't even show up until the second later in the second
Later.
act. But it's like I needed to make him kind of creepy, but also like I added too much detail
Mhm.
to him, and I realized that, man, that's like he's way simplified now than this. But these were my initial drawings, and this I was actually drawing them as I was listening to the radio play.
Mhm.
So this is the kind of fun you can have, and it's like that's what creativity is, right? It's play. And make sure you play, you relax, you have fun, listen to music while you're doing this, or whatever it is your idea that amplifies your mood. Do it. That's the great part about us, that being creative, we can you just come up with anything,
Yeah.
and yeah, it might not work, but you gotta make sure that you follow a lot of the principles like shape language, be able to read clearly what everything is,
Mhm.
and use your references and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, and your visual feel, really quickly, the visual feel of the film kind of is born out of like your influences from what films you watched. So that's why I push a lot on, please study film. If you're love story, study film, watch your favorite things, watch and look at them and see, why is this funny, why is this good, ask yourself questions always. Anyways, that'll be another talk,
That's another
but
thing. Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
move to the next one so we have time for
Yeah.
questions hopefully at the end.
Just a few, and then we'll do more tomorrow, because there's a lot to talk about
Oh, definitely.
always whenever I
Oh
start
yeah.
talking. So I just quickly to talk about like short film really is about like getting the audience to, you really want to connect with the audience, you really want them to understand the point of what they're watching, you want to engage them. And for me, color was as important as everything else. And color is really depends on how you want to use it. In my film, we use color. I use color as an emotional reflection of. Um, it was style in the beginning, style choice of the colors. So it wasn't like a realistic kind of a room color. It was exaggerated UPA. But as the film progressed, I wanted the colors to shift to show the emotional mood of the character, which is where like the purples and the pinks, the kind of reds come in the climax, and that was like a direct color reference from old Disney films. If you've ever watched Pocahontas, they do that with the climax moment where the two sides start to go to battle. And then a few other films that do similar like color palette. So that's where that came from, like the emotional buildup of, and then the color showing that the redness as well. And of course, in terms of like the style and all that, we already talked about that. So uh, yeah, like I'm just gonna, I guess, show you just the kind of reference I provided. And again, every visual thing has a meaning and a purpose, and you don't want to put things in your film. if you would just want to do it for the sake of just because you want to, that's fine. But if you can actually like plus it with a purpose where it helps the story and it connects with the story, it's always going back to that. Is that helping us and how? And so in this point, is the color helping us emanate what? So that was important to me. Some people like aesthetic, like beauty and aesthetic, that's also fine. But beauty aesthetic also equals an emotion. It equals serenity, it equals peace, it equals calm. So it's all about connecting that emotional experience with yourself and whoever you think is going to watch it. It's all about the connection, right? So every single thing
Hmm.
has a connection to it, visually, audio visually. So in terms of like reference, and if those who know like A Beautiful Mind is the film, and essentially I remembered that that's how he thought on the window, and that was my reference for her composing the music and reflecting on she's thinking. And so that's something I used in the film. And again, like the shape language doesn't mean you have to pick everything in the reference. It could just be parts, like this part of this reference, I really want that shape language. I want that to translate into the rest of the background. I want the tapering down or up, like whatever. So it could be specific things you find from many places, and that's where you start to combine and establish a style. Um, and of course, like Jose, you were saying, it has to translate to animation. So you're looking at the design, but you're also looking at how it would move, and you're trying to fit the two together. It's quite tricky. So like for you,
Yeah,
of course,
always.
yeah, you like found you because you're also animated, so you had that tension of like what you would want to essentially like handle or what you could or couldn't handle. Then yeah, like of course with the team you have that, and as a director you have to think of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so how did Clip Studio work out for you in terms of the
Ah,
workflow?
amazing. I actually really love working on it. I had to figure out how to make it work because I originally started with Harmony, and so I forgot that I actually used Storyboard Pro to actually, um, like it was cheap, cheaper back then to use. So you can use 30-day trials, by the way. So if you have an idea of what you want to pull down, actually not maybe not so much anymore the 30-day trials, but you can try to storyboard it in that time frame if you can. I have other options for storyboarding, but I did it there, and then I brought it into Harmony, and it was just too expensive. Couldn't do it. So then I'm like, okay, I need to find something that I already have, which is Clip Studio X, and it said you can animate. I'm like, awesome. And then eventually they actually added new features like you can add audio to it, and that was the killer right there. That's where I went, okay, I'm using this. So I learned how to use it, and I did my whole film through it, including backgrounds. There's nothing more amazing than having one software that can do both things because it's there. I don't have to worry about it.
Mhm.
So when I finished it, I exported it and I brought it into After Effects, did my compositing, exported to Premiere Pro, and boom, there it is.
All right, let's
That
watch
was
the
it.
shot. Let's watch your shot. Your
Yeah,
the
let's do it.
evolution of the
Oh,
shot.
so
Okay.
the evolution of the shot before we started, just to so you know, like I'm not gonna talk through it, but it's just all the pipeline of it. So I mean, you'll see it, but it's like if you have questions, put it in the question and answer thing in Discord, and we'll get to it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thank you.
So it'll be like the board, the rough, the clean, the comp, right?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Let's
Yes.
go.
Their reputation. The strangest thing about the picture is the man's eyes. The only thing left of the their reputation. The strangest thing about the picture is the man's eyes. The only thing left of the their reputation. The strangest thing about the picture is the man's eyes. The only thing left of the their reputation. The strangest thing about the picture is the man's eyes. The only thing left of the
Sweet.
Yeah. So how yours? I'm sure
All
was a
right.
bit different. Like
The one shot,
for
right? I don't know. How many shots did you
yeah.
have? How many shots did you have in the film?
Oh, in the end, it's
Yeah.
2027, I think it was, or
That's
something like
it?
that.
That's
Yeah, it
awesome.
was not very huge. One actually, one of them was really huge. like one shot was like ginormous, and that's where I learned mistake from my mistakes.
Amazing. No, that's great. I mean, it's a lot to handle. I'll move on because we just
Yeah,
we're reaching the time.
yeah, yeah. Let's.
Yeah.
But we
I
want to
do.
see your stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So I have like the same situation where we take it board to rough animation to and effects animation and comp. I think this one has the comp or just I think it has comp as well. Yeah.
It does have
Um,
comp.
yeah, but just to note that in our film we had animation and we had effects animation, and the effects animation, that team, they actually did traditional animation, so they animated on ones, I believe, and it was hand drawn. Just want to point that out, that those were two separate things. So the tone, the squiggly circle thing, which actually means a held note, like ostinato, the word ostinato means a held note, which is about the whole tinnitus tone thing. That character, it was fully hand drawn, and so that's why it's so nice and smooth, essentially. And in terms of every step of the way as a director, I had to provide information in terms of movement, and of course do draw overs, references of like the acting and behavior, and of course in terms of comp and everything else, the finished look, the shadows. You get your hands into everything as a director. You're really involved, which is really beautiful. I really love that. So I'm just going to play the shot. So here you are. So now that's comp and effects. All right, so I just want to mention that in my
I love
like,
those
yeah,
effects.
it's so beautiful. I'll tell you guys the whole thing about this. This was a request that the director, you can, the things that you think are important, because color, shape, and the moment of realization comes to affect visually. To connect that, I thought, well, how can we show it? We can hear it, she can behave, but how can we show it? What else can we change visually in her space? Because her space was like part of the story too. Like, it was her confinement, it was her like comfort, and then it kind of ruined, everything got ruined. So in this moment of like healing, like how can her environment be part of that experience? And if you guys have seen Ratatouille, when he eats the cheese and the fruit, and he's got this like aha moment with the mix and the sparks. Well, that's what this reference was from. And because like if you do boards and you have your hands in story, things like transitions that you can get in or ask for or draw yourself, they matter. So like the transition of the light, these are all small things that really make a difference in very impactful moments. And as a director, it's your job to pick up on these things, of what these moments and the details that help this amplify the moment, and every little thing matters. So I think we covered pretty much all of it, right?
I
Like
think so.
that's pretty
Yeah.
good, I think. I don't know if there's anything else we can say about our process, but essentially that's what the engine room is. It's production. We just call
Yeah.
it the engine room, where everything is like
Like
busting,
everything starts moving.
everything's moving. Yeah,
Everything. And
absolutely.
this is when you put your blueprint to the test.
Yes.
And this is where you do a lot of problem solving as well. So like as long as you're prepared, you that's why you do a lot of the work in the blueprint and your spark, to make sure that when you get to the engine room, like all the gears are synced up. And if they're not, then you can stop and then make sure that they work. I know it's an analogy, but it's like
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that move, like you got to make sure that they're, clear.
Exactly. So, essentially, I know we have questions. We have like the other two parts tomorrow, which is this we post and distribution. And as you can see, there's a lot to share, which is why we wanted to do it as a second day piece with Q&A,
Yeah.
because it is hard to condense everything, and also give you guys time to think a little on. And whoever did fill out that Spark sheet that was included, I hope that maybe now that you've written answers, you may look at those questions a little differently. That could be like your insight.
Or have
Um,
new questions through it because of
yeah,
it. And that's great.
exactly. Exactly. And if you're working on something and shaping it up, then you just want to really hone in on your visual, and musical kind of like vision of it. And I talk so much. I'm sorry, Jose, if I'm
No,
hogging
no, no, it's
this.
all good. No, no,
Uh,
let's.
I
No,
just
no,
want,
it's fine. I want you to
yeah,
put everything out. Like it's a. But we can answer probably a couple of questions right now that we have time, right? Or do we have
we
one more
we
actually?
are we
Oh,
are
we have.
at the 1 hour mark. We can maybe pull up a few. I would love to, like, I don't know if somebody wants to pop on their audio, but maybe I'll just pick a few questions from our
Yeah, let
people who
me
have
let
been
me grab
popping
one
in.
for you and ask it. Like I'm gonna
Sure,
grab
yeah,
from the top.
yeah,
So
and
this one's from Pom Pom Sketches. Hello, Pom Pom. How much time does an animated short film take to complete? Which it's a
okay,
great question.
yes.
So
So
please.
awesome. So like this was a 7 minute. Most people don't think about this, but credits actually is also screen time. Total of the film with credits is 7 minutes. Without the credits, it's 5 minutes. So how long did it take to create the 5 minute short? We were in a part-time schedule, so each person was committing about 25 hours per week, and so we had about a year and a half from beginning to final delivery is how long we get to do it part-time. And we had
Hmm.
about our immediate team was about we had 8 of us, which were leads, so like director and supervisors, and then we had each supervisor had a department. So we had an average of around like up to 50 people working on the film, if not more, as we
Hmm.
the each department expanded. So it took a year and a
Yeah,
half. Yeah.
yeah.
Do you
And
want
for
me to
me, it
pick one?
was
Okay.
yeah. For me, was that it was different because it was again just me doing it. I put 3 years because I initially wanted to do it in a year, but I saw the scope of the project, and I'm like looking at it because it kept evolving. I had to do a lot of tests, making sure that I could figure out how Clip Studio EX worked, with everything. And I made a lot of mistakes, fixed them, and then I got in track. And that's why it took, it's a minute 52, I think it is, of that. And of course, I had to do everything pretty much. So it took me 3 years, part time as well, weekends, ignoring family, the usual fun stuff that we artists do. Um,
Yeah, that's great. Do
you
you
want me to find another one? Or you want to
I
find one?
was gonna just talk about the composer because that's really
Yeah, yeah,
important.
do it. Yeah,
So
please.
there's a question about finding a composer, I believe, selecting a composer
Yes,
with, yeah,
by
Chroma
Chromalaine. Sorry,
Chromalin.
my Spanglish came out. Chroma
So
Chromalaine. That's not.
yeah, so essentially, in terms of picking a composer, first of all, I'd like to say that if you go to any film festivals, you meet composers there. And if it's like an organized film festival where you can uh, actually, like, put a profile and who's there and whatnot, then they will also find you. Believe it or not, composers are very friendly and they want to meet
Yeah.
people who are, yes, they want to meet us, the visual, people that want to create animation. So in terms of that, you can, of course, you can go to different music agencies. You can post independently in groups and things like that. Our composer came from a music agency because our producer had knew the music agency, and so they just inquired if they would recommend somebody. You don't have to go that way. That's one way about it. And I just wanted to say that our composer was involved from day one. So she was involved.
Mhm.
Her name is Amanda Colley. She was involved not at the end, which is kind of a normal way. She was
Production.
involved. Yeah, she
Yeah.
was involved through the animatic and actually the theme of the film. It evolved throughout with the film. It started as something else completely. But even that part, the director, like myself, we had exchange. Like she would compose this piece based on my descriptions, musical references. Like she'd ask me for musical references to the mood of the film. And then when she did an iteration, we listened and I gave her my like feedback on which part of like like my ideas of how it should sound or how it should feel, and she would transcribe that into the revision of making it
Yeah.
musically feel that way, the feeling of it. Yeah. So
The
yeah,
biggest takeaway from all this, though, too, is that again, you need to like. This is why we're trying to build a community that we can have a lot of resources. We do have like Sonia knows so many people. I know so many people. There's a lot of resources we can find, and I think that's why you need to go to festivals. You need to be part of like communities, like work together. yes, please don't be afraid of making mistakes. This is the main thing that I would say. If you want to make something, make it. Just go for it. Just do it. Like the meme, do it. Just do it.
Just do it.
Um, just
Yeah.
do it.
Oh God, here it
But
comes.
anyways, you have anything else to say before I wrap it up? Because we're running out of time here. We're running out of time, didn't we?
Yeah, we're over
I think
time.
it's
That's
at
it.
one.
But we have
Yeah.
tomorrow. We will cover the
Yep,
rest
we're at
tomorrow.
tomorrow. There's
Good and
more. So what do
fresh
we have tomorrow? What are we going to talk about tomorrow, Sonia?
post, and we're going to talk about distribution, which
Distribution,
is
very important.
very important.
Very important. So if you guys want to
Lots to
join us
say.
tomorrow, we'll discuss that, which is the part that actually helps us as independent animators make our own shorts, indie animators. So please come back, and then
Oh,
hopefully
Tap.
you have more
Tap is
questions.
the animation platform. It is our host. It is
That's
where
us.
it's yeah, like it's our community, and it's also the goal of it is to help people work together collaboratively. So it is about hosting also other creatives to share. It's about connecting people. It's about um, resources and sharing the resource, and it's about getting continuing the connection of animation, like crews, because animation is collaboration, and that's all you gotta remember, that we had the experience of being in the studio, and so once everybody's remote, we understand that missing piece, and it is going to have to be facilitated and fostered online, which is what we're doing. We're bringing in that studio environment. That's it.
Yeah,
So
sorry, I was putting
thanks so
somebody,
much
Danielle was
again.
asking about the Discord link.
Yeah.
I just put it down in the chat, but if not, you can actually find it, also um, in your email, I think, if I
hmm
remember correctly.
For
But
the
thank you
Discord?
so
Yep,
much. Yeah, for the Discord.
absolutely.
So
See you
thank you
guys
so much. I
tomorrow.
look
Yeah,
forward to seeing you guys on the Discord and hearing your questions. Thank you so much.
fantastic. See you guys tomorrow. Thank you all.
See you tomorrow.
You're
Bye.
amazing. Bye bye.